right, a couple of folks. This will be an automation fair to touch and feel, but Rockwell has introduced a new migration from Slick to Compact Logics. It's similar to the current PLC 5 migration. So we'll talk about that a little bit. And then at the very end, I'm going to do a really quick demo of Integrated Architecture Builder, which will kind of show you how to, if you're approaching a migration product and you need a quick bill of material, this will assist you in how to create that bill of material. And we have an echo in the building we're working on, but it's getting louder. So anyway, I appreciate you guys joining. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask questions and I'll answer it twice. So I'm going to hand it over to Don with Emphatic, and we're going to go ahead and get started on the presentation today.
It's getting worse. Okay, thank you very much. My name is Don Robinson from Emphatic. If you choose to call us Emphatech, that's okay too. I used to work for a company called Weidmuller years ago. Nobody knew how to pronounce that name either, so when I set up my own company, I decided to stick with names nobody can pronounce. So with me today is Vinesh Kumar, our sales manager, and our local agents, tech sales. We have Kevin Kenzie, Oliver, Jeremy. So we are based in Toronto, but if you have any questions or any, you talk to our local guys. Oh, the echo's gone. Okay, so I got a very short presentation on what we call MyBridge, the control migration hardware. We do not do software. This is strictly a hardware solution. The intent being you do not have to shut your plant down and rip and replace. We got into this business about 10 years ago at a major steel mill in Canada. They had a GE control system. They decided to migrate to ControlLogix. And what really caused the the urgency to do the migration, the story we heard was the last guy who understood the GE system retired. So they decided that they chose ControlLogix. And the deal is, this particular site had 6 or 7 different mills, casting mills and rolling mills and blast furnaces and all this stuff. And this one particular mill, a big cauldron of molten steel comes in, they pour it into big slabs and off it goes again. And they said, you can take all the time you want to do the migration unless the steel hardens in the cauldron, in which case that's bad. And all the time you need amounted to about 4 hours to convert 1,200 IO points. So they said, yep, you've got a Saturday morning for 4 hours. We have to go from a 35 or 40-year-old GE system to a ControlLogix. So first step was the software guys come in. They said we have to monitor the GE for a couple of years to figure out the software, write the code for the ControlLogix. It took 2.5 years of off-site engineering, but finally the Saturday morning rolled around. We had provided them some adapters, and the transition took place in a couple hours on Saturday. The steel didn't harden, and the plant was now running on ControlLogix. So the idea is very straightforward. You have an existing control system. It's got a connector on the front of a digital input card, for example. You want to take that connector off, plug it into an adapter, and the adapter plugs into the ControlLogix, and you're done. You don't touch the field wiring. So where's, all right, Vinesh, where's the, I could put my glasses on, take all the sport out of it, but where's the up down of this thing? Oh, found it. So the current estimate is that there's about 60 billion, okay, before I go on, I should point out, I am Canadian. I just said what we call about, and you guys probably heard something else. Yeah, So there will be a few of these little linguistic gems as I go forward. And yes, Canadians do say a lot. Yeah, that would be about a, yeah, $20 US type of thing or something. So, no, that is actually 60 billion US dollars. And the US estimate is $8 to $10 billion of control systems that are already 30 years old. And we do talk to people who are buying parts on eBay to keep their control systems running. We often ask customers as we do these projects, you know, could we get a testimonial from you? Can we do a write-up for the magazines? And the end users never agree to it because they say, we don't want anyone to know that we've been buying parts on eBay to keep our plant running. It's also tends to be a very long cycle from when a customer thinks we're going to have to replace this. They don't decide the next week what they're going to do and then proceed. It's a long drawn out process as they analyze what system they want to migrate to. We've probably done 70 or 80 migrations to date, and every single one of them have been to control logic. We don't get involved with the customer in terms of choosing the new system, and Rockwell's obviously doing and you guys are obviously doing a good job of that now. These systems are no longer supported by the original manufacturer. Spare parts are becoming hard to find, very expensive. Talked to a customer the other day who spent $14,000 on a PLC 5 processor, and that wasn't even new. That was a used one off eBay. MyBridge is simply a hardware solution to get you from the old system to the new system. So the projects usually start, we get a spreadsheet. It lists the existing IO cards, and then it lists the control logics or whatever part number you want to migrate to. We do the design in between. So this is it. This is what we're doing. This thing on that would be the left side, is a Honeywell IPC card. They had these two little swing arms, an upper and a lower, actually cleverly called top and bottom. There's field wiring terminals, a cable over to these little swing arms. What we do is we would take those swing arms off and plug them onto an adapter, the big green circuit board you see on the right. The adapter is wired over to the control logics. It's just plug and play, and you're up and running again without ever touching the field wiring. Interesting things that come up is a lot of the Honeywell cards were 6-channel. Whole world went 8, they went 6. So then you want to migrate over to control logics, and they're 16-channel. And try as we might, even in Canada, we cannot divide 16 by 6 and come up with an even number. So you end up with these weird cables. So you go from 2 Honeywell cards to 1 control logics, and then you still end up with 4 channels that are not used. Some customers say, no, we want you to wire those 4 over to a little connector in the front so we have them in the future. Other customers go, whatever, they're gone, don't worry about it. Every project we've done has something customized. So that's fine with us. The whole point of our project, you don't touch the field wiring. When we did this, the big job at the steel mill in Canada, the GE to control logics, there's a vertical DIN rail loaded up with these terminal blocks that all the field wiring come into. And you could drive the customer nuts by just staring at the terminals, because they kept saying, no, you're not allowed to touch those. You can't touch the field wiring. And you just look at them and they go, no, you can't even, don't even look at it. And our hardware is all designed to fit in the same space as the existing IO. So you do not add control cabinets. Take out the existing hardware, ours bolts in the same place. I'll show you what it looks like. Wherever possible. Every now and then you run into a project where you can't do this. There's only been 1 or 2 jobs we've quoted where they said, nah, we're putting in new control cabinets and getting 200 feet away and you're running big long cables. Then the cable price is more than our hardware, and actually the shipping cost for the cables is more than our hardware. I don't actually know where the camera is. Am I wandering in and out of the, I'm good? Okay. Okay. this rather lousy picture is a quantum, Modicon quantum IO system. So we're getting a lot of requests for these days. We've done several projects. We did one at an aluminum smelter that was probably 2,500 IO points on quantum. So on the front of the quantum is the field wiring connector. They only had one. It was a 40-pole connector. And it's mounted on a back plane. So we would take that field wiring connector off the front of the quantum and take all the quantum hardware, throw it away, probably sell it on eBay to somebody. Then that connector would plug into our adapter, and we have a back plane that bolts into the exact same space that the quantum hardware came out of. So there's 4 or 6 screws holding in that quantum back plane. Comes out, we use the same 4 or 6 screws to put our chassis in, mount the adapter, and the adapter comes with the cable hanging off it, and at the end of the cable is a TBCH or TBNH to plug into your control logic. So there it is with the quantum connector plugged in again. So we've talked to customers who say they've got a control cabinet with 2 quantum racks. I don't know what they were, like 16 slots, so there's probably 12 or 14 IO cards. And they're doing the migration. We've heard everything from 30 minutes per IO cabinet to completely migrate it to control logics to an hour. Maybe it's 30 minutes if you got 2 electricians and an hour if you got 1. It'd be nice if we could say, yeah, it's exactly 30 minutes, but it depends on the cabinet. And you guys have seen it too. You go into these cabinets, it's a 20, 30-year-old control system. The covers off the wire, ducts are gone. The wiring's a complete rat's nest. They could probably spend 20 minutes just getting the wires out of the way to get at the control logics. I would think, yes, yeah. I was at a cellulose plant in North Florida recently, and they were using Modicon 800, and they had no cabinets. They bolted it to the wall. So yeah, and it was about 103 degrees that day. That was only a month ago. So I figured, I don't know what the temperature on the controllers would be in July, but yeah, no cabinets at all. So they had lots of space to work with. Give them credit for that. Whoops. Okay, so we didn't invent the migration concept. There's other people doing it, Rockwell, for example, and some other companies. The original stuff we were doing, these adapters I told you about, you plugged in the existing field wire connector, and then we plugged in a cable that went to the control logic. And customer number 2 or 3 came along and said, I don't want the new cable to the control logics to plug in. I want it hardwired. And we had some customers who were saying, you know what, I've got a connector on the front of my new IO. I've got the existing field wiring connectors. I don't want a 3rd connector in between. Perception was it was a weak point. It's something else that could go wrong. So we use little spring-loaded terminals. They're from a company called Weidmuller. So on the end of our wiring, we put ferrules, and you just push the ferrule into the connection. No screw to open and close. The great thing about these is once you push in the ferrule, the connection's as good as it's going to get. It's vibration proof. It doesn't change with temperature, minus 40 to plus 60 or 70. For us, our oil and gas industry, they're more concerned with minus 40. I'm guessing not a big problem in Texas, but you're probably plus 60, which we don't see very often. So these things are immune to the temperature change. Customers have accepted them as, okay, it's not another connector per se. So what we do is our adapters come with a cable hanging off it in the TBCH or TBNH on the end, 1 part number. So you would tell us I'm going from a, I don't know, Modicon B820016, and I'm going to a 1756 IA16, and we hand you 1 part number, that's everything you need. These things are obviously 100% tested before they ship out to you. We have a little computerized cable tester. We had one customer who wanted, we were doing a couple hundred cables for them, and they wanted to send their QC people to witness the cable testing. Have you ever watched somebody test a cable before? So they lasted about 15 minutes and headed off to the local donut shop. But anyway, some customers ask us to put some custom labeling on the cables. They have some internal plant standard that the cable is labeled with its origin and its destination. So that's fine. We can do that too. I'm kind of blazing through this. If anyone has any questions, just shout them out. Okay, so this is what kind of the end result looks like. The chassis on that side, that is a Modicon 800 IO chassis. I have one here, I'll show you. We mount the control logics on the front, and the cable, that cable is kind of exaggerated because it looks better in the picture. In actual fact, it's about 2 feet long. And everything just bolts on. So the idea is there were 4 mounting holes for the 7-slot Modicon chassis. We use the same ones. You've got the cover on our chassis is pre-drilled for control logics. If you were migrating, I don't know, to compact logics, there'd be a piece of DIN rail on the front of our chassis. You would tell us what you're migrating to. It comes pre-drilled from us. Second or third customer said, yeah, you pre-drilled it, but you didn't give me the screws. So now it ships out with the screws to hold the control logics on the front. I'm just waiting for the guy. Yeah, I dropped one. Could you send me another screw? You know, the beauty of this stuff is, you're eliminating downtime. One of this Georgia Pacific plant we visited recently said $1 million a day when they shut down the plant. After 3 days, they start losing the customers because everything's just in time. They don't get long-term contracts. So they said, okay, you can do whatever migration you want, but if it goes more than 3 days, you can't do anything. And if you do it, we're going to lose $1 million a day. So we show up with this package. They're not saying they want a 5% reduction. They want to get one in advance to test it, make sure it works and all that. So the fact I'm giving them 6 or 7 screws to save them $1 million of downtime a day, yeah, give them the screws. We had one guy wanted the inside of the cover lined with foam rubber. Okay. So some of the things we've worked on, this is perpetually out of date. We've done IPC 620, Modicon 200. I don't know if you've ever seen that. That one is a work of art. Absolutely huge IO cards. You got a cabinet that's 8 feet tall and 3 feet wide. It only has 64 IO in it. And it looks like it because it's massive metal cards and it's probably a brilliant system back in the day. I don't know. Modicon 800, less indestructible, but still, yeah. Quantum, I don't know. We've done some adapters. We've done Bailey Infinity, or ABB, I guess it is now. GE Series 6. Apparently there were 2 GE Series 6s. They called one the Salem system and one something else. We've done one, we're looking at the other one, GE 9030s, 9070s. A little bit of APAC stuff. A thing called a WDPF from Westinghouse. No, I think that was pretty much power generation market. Also working on a Genius IO adapter. Huge installed base, but bit of a challenge. The Genius was configurable. Each channel, you can make it an in or an output. So what do you migrate to? You gotta have a 16-channel input and output card for every Genius block. Anyway, we're working on that one. What else have we done? Slick. Yeah, should have thought of that one. We did a Provox, we did a Slick 500, we've prototyped some PLC 5 stuff. We've prototyped compact logics. Yeah, Modicon has a thing called a TSX compact. Coming through. Foxborough IA, we did one or two. Not a complete solution to that. We didn't do the cabling. Somebody else did the cables. We've supplied a lot of these migration adapters to Rockwell, and they got the cables done by Microflex or something like that. So, yeah. The projects all start the same way. Somebody says, have you ever done Foxborough IA? I say, yeah. And then go to eBay and buy a bunch of Foxborough junk and figure it out from there. And the industries, yeah, whatever. The Modicon 200 was automotive. GE was a steel plant. Food processing, that's not a big market for us at the moment. Metals processing, that's where Genius IO has a huge installed base. Apparently years ago, GE decided that was a market they wanted to dominate. And so you get steel mills and aluminum processing plants all over the US. Visited one aluminum plant at 2,000 Genius IO blocks, and there is no migration strategy. GE apparently just lost interest and moved on or something. Cement production, doesn't sound like it'd be a big challenge. It is, because they have a 1 month shutdown every year, so they don't want to, they're fine with rip and replace, but we have done a job or two there. Oil and gas, of course, is a big one. Did a chemical processing, one of the best jobs ever. It was done with some Rockwell guys in Louisiana. They said it's a chemical plant. We said, oh, what do they make? And they go, yeah, nobody knows. They said, yeah, the plant doesn't even have a name on it. It's just surrounded by a chain link fence. And the story is, if the plant ever shuts down, the EPA will never let it start up again. So they had to do this online migration. So I don't know, it must be like, just makes toxic waste or something. I don't know what it produces. So they had that, like, there's a multi-step process, and at the output of each step, there's a massive storage tank, so that when this part craps out, they just keep filling the tank and filling the tank, and you've got to get it running again before the tank overflows. So everything. So they're saying, okay, we can just shut off this part, the tanks will start filling up, and we migrate that portion. And I said, so probably not going to get a testimonial in a magazine article. And they said, you want nothing to do with these people. So we never did. Somewhere in Louisiana, there's a plant making some pretty horrible stuff. And we don't know who it is. So that's it for the presentation. Any questions before I start dragging out the hardware and amazing you with it? We okay for time? Yeah, we took a little corner of our warehouse, and that's our MyBridge area, and it's boxes and boxes of IO systems we bought from eBay. Everything's on eBay at some point. We haven't, nobody's asked us for a migration yet, but I couldn't buy all the stuff on eBay type of thing. There's even people who do nothing but buy these old IO cards on eBay, refurbish them, and sell them with a warranty. There's an outfit up in New Jersey that does that. So you take an IO card that was probably $500 in the day, and now for $5,000, you can get one with a 1-year warranty type of thing. Yeah. So there's, yeah, so we start everything with going to eBay and buying, we were looking, what was it? Somebody asked us the other, not long ago, if we could migrate to Ovation from Emerson. Is it Emerson? Yeah. So you know, we said, okay, I need to know the pinouts of the IO cards. And they were like, oh, well, yeah, we can give you that if you sign up as a member of the Emerson group of some type. And to do that, you just had to submit your bank statement and a few other things. And it's just, So I think this doesn't make any sense. So you go on Google and you enter Ovation information. The first one is join the users group. The second one is here's a PDF. So download. So we're now ready to migrate to Ovation if anyone wants to. If it's a system we've done before, it tends to be about 8 weeks to round everything up. The longest time is somebody has to make those cables. If you bring us something we've never done before, it might be 10, 12 weeks. What we're generally finding is we're talking to the customer or he's talking to you 2 years before the migration happens anyway. You don't decide today to migrate next Tuesday. So we've generally these tend to be longer term projects. We're quoting a lot of projects now, which I'm guessing is because we're nearing near end and people are planning next year's budget. So, okay, so let's have a look at what I've been babbling on about here. So, we're a good place to do this, but so this is a Modicon 800. Solution. So in a panel, a Modicon IO card is probably that deep. So you didn't find many of them in an 8-inch deep box. They were quite deep. This is what their field wiring connector looked like. So this was screwed into a chassis. There's a screw there, and you could put about 8 of them in a chassis, and the IO card slid down the side. It had little fingers sticking out that made contact here. Okay, so if you're going to do a migration, you take out the IO card, sell that on eBay, take out 2 screws, and this comes out with the existing field wiring. Then we've provided this, which is the adapter with our spring-loaded connections, the cable, and TB CH probably in this case. So that would come out of the panel. Okay, now you've mated the 2 together. So our chassis come with a removable front cover. And the idea is this comes off and goes to one electrician who mounts control logics on here, does all that installation while the other guy is tearing out the Modicon hardware and throwing it away. This is it upside down. Mounts in the chassis. So this chassis has been put in the place of the Modicon rack. This mounts in. Cover goes on the front, comes complete with mounting screws. That plugs into the control logics. Migration's done. So this was actually the hinge cover, I will give credit. That was the idea of Mike Vernack from Rockwell. He came up with this hinge cover idea. It's kind of the placebo effect because customers say, well, I want to be able to get at the adapter. But there's no electronics in the adapter. It's a circuit board with some traces. So we're finding people put the cover on, tighten down the screws, and 5 years later still haven't opened the cover, but you can if you want. Now, that's applies to most cases. Every now and then when you're doing a migration, GE 9030 to control logics, some of the GEIO had fusing built into it that's not on the control logics. So we put the fusing on the adapter. They had to go somewhere, so we put them in here. Now you have to be able to access it in case a fuse blew. But wherever possible, the adapter is completely passive. No electronics on it. You don't have to go in there and do anything. On occasion, some fuses. If you are migrating from Modicon Quantum to control logics, the analog outputs are not compatible. One is field powered, one system powered. So we have an adapter with analog isolators on it. So now everything matches up. So we provide the hinge cover. And then after, I don't know how many of those we had shipped, probably a couple hundred, we found out one customer had knocked it off the chassis while working in the cabinet. The cover was kind of dangling from the cables. Clearly my fault. So now it comes with little slots here. When you put it all together, you can put a tie wrap, holds the cover from coming off. One guy wanted the inside lined with foam rubber. I didn't even ask why. I don't know. So you can get them with foam rubber. Traditionally, this is what the cable would look like. And we did a project at a paper mill in California. And the shipping weight of the cable was pretty hefty. It was a lot of money to get the cables to California. So now what we encourage customers to use is, instead of a jacketed cable, apparently we have one. Oh, there it is. This is just a wire bundle, and you put a flexible sleeve or loom on it. And the bending radius is way better than this guy, so you can have a shorter cable bend up to the new one, and it's a lot lighter. So we've lowered the shipping cost. Customer has a choice, same price. So if you have we have a part number for the adapter, cable, and control logic swing arm. And then if you put an L on the end, you get it with a loom. And if you put a J on the end, you get it with a jacket. We're clever people. So that, and then on some occasions, you know, this cable has become 20 feet long to go to a new cabinet, or 6 feet long to go to a little box on the side of the existing. But in 90-something% of what we've done, the cable's about that long. Then when we started going to just a bundle of wires with a loom, we can inkjet print on the wires. So some customers want to know exactly where that wire is going, even though it comes from us terminated, but fine. We use 18 gauge wire. We had a lot of customers who, some of our competitors are using 22 gauge, and we've had customers saying, no, that's not big enough. There's no technical reason for that. I mean, if you're putting 20 milliamps through a wire, 22 gauge is fine, but some people are like, no, I want 18 gauge. If you're selling to the automotive industry, it's like, what, you don't do 14 gauge? Some places, you talk to the customer, they question your sexual orientation if you use a small gauge wire. Ferrules on the end of the wires. So, you know, everything's nice and neat, and no chance of short circuits. And sometimes, you know, custom labeling in the cable, if they want to know where it's coming from or going. And then put it all together. So any questions? I'll pass these around if you guys want to touch them, be impressed. So I'll show you another one, and this is for the Slick 500. So I think this is the equivalent of a 7-slot Slick 500. DIN rail on the front, because the first couple projects we've been quoting, they're migrating to compact logic. So we did have a request that, telling you earlier, the customer called me up and said, I got compact logic. I said, great. What are you migrating to? He says, compact logic. Now I thought it was quite clever. I said, can I just invoice you? Do I have to? I'm not sure what I would deliver to you. But anyway, he didn't find that nearly as amusing, because there are two different compact. There's a 1769 and a 5069. And he was migrating from the 17 to the 5069 and didn't see the humor in the invoicing him. So anyway, so let's say it's from Slick 500 to 1769 or 5069. It'll mount on the front here. Same hinge cover concept. So if the original system you're replacing, some of them had, you know, 7-slot, 15-slot, 12 slots and all that, we have, it's just this one backplate that changes. So we make a chassis for whatever size the original system was. And on the inside, more DIN rail. So this is where the our adapters would go for the Slick 500. Slick 500 had basically 3 different field wiring connectors. So the most common was this RT25, I think it was called. It came in 4 different colors. I'm colorblind, so I just one adapter. Now, I don't have any samples here. We're starting to make our own housing for electronic circuit boards, and it's in our corporate green, which guys in the office call spew. That's the shade of green type of thing. And some of the other engineers will tell you that our housings are exactly what you get when the colorblind guy chose the plastic. And sadly, it's true, because I did choose it. I thought it was quite nice, but it's apparently offensive to some people. But anyway, there was 4 different colored connectors for the RT25, but they're all the exact same electrically. So that would plug into the adapter. The adapter goes in the chassis. This particular one, 6 or 8 foot cable, plugging into control logics. There was also some that used just kind of a standard 508 or 5mm pitch connector. There's one that had 2 connectors on the front. So I think we have 3 adapters for the Slick 500 family. These, whoops, now all tangled up. But we're just getting these into stock now, and hopefully do our first Slick 500 migration soon. Then, of course, I don't know, with the second project or second customer we're talking to says, oh, what about the Slick 500 cards that don't have removable connectors on the front? Now you have to rip and replace. So we took that as a challenge. And what we did was we made a little circuit board and we 3D printed a housing, and you would take the whole card out, plug it in. This has the cable hanging off it. It's a little bit bigger, so the chassis has to get a bit deeper. And then you're hoping that you still have room left for the new I/O. I don't know how, I don't really know how common these were, how many people use them. Every project we've, I mean, the guy who brought this up had 100 I/O cards, and one of them was like this or something like that, you know, so it's, well, just so you have something for everything. So, and that would mount on DIN rail inside the chassis. And we are working on the PLC 5 solution. The challenge there is that there were some swing arms that were mixed gold-plated and tin-plated contacts. And you can't plug one into the other, it'll start to corrode. So there were like 6 or 7 different swing arm sizes, and then some of them were gold and some were tin, and they even had some that were both. So we're just getting all that sorted out. You end up having to buy a tin lead plate or tin plated contact, sending it out, getting somebody to gold flash it. So we're just getting those ready to go now. So any questions? I'll hand some of this stuff around so you can marvel at it. I would say the first project was in, I'm going to say 2005, and that was the GE one. And, you know, really serious about it for the last 5-6 years. Yeah. So of the engineering staff, we're a small company. There's only 12 employees, and 5 of them are in product development, and probably 3 of them are doing MyBridge. So that's this stuff. So if there's no questions, okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I'll take it.
good on that side? Cool. So we'll stay with the kind of idea of the modernization side of it. So we did this last year. There was a couple of things that we talked about, especially on the PLC 5 side of it. We're going to focus on Slick. So similar to what you guys saw right now, we do have our solution when it comes to migrating from kind of Rockwell to Rockwell. Unfortunately, not the 1769 to 5069, so we have them. So a lot of the customized piece of it will still work with Emphatic to make sure that we have a solution to go with. One of the things that we're going to come out with, and I think we talked about it earlier in the year, but we have a Slick migration utility that'll be going to a 5069 platform. So that's the newer compact logics. So if you guys are looking to do a Slick to the 1769 side of it, at that point, we'd start looking at Emphatic to be able to do something similar to the wiring harness that we're looking at there. One quick thing, Slicks are not going away yet. They are still active mature. So don't run away and say that I told you that you needed to migrate right now. It's a lie. But I would strongly encourage.
If you do sell a Slick, we will talk badly behind your backs. If you still has a new system.
We really don't want to sell any new Slick systems. If you are looking at something like that, let us know. I will work with you to make sure that we can convert. So the idea here is we had the original system where we can swap out and make Slick a remote IO chassis with a newer compact logics, but that left the existing IO. So you're leaving the existing hardware, you're leaving the existing IO. The idea now is we're going to give you, similar to the PLC 5 migration kit, we're going to give you a Slick migration kit. So as we start seeing that, one of the two items that you guys should be aware of that are currently out right now is the 1747 ANTR. That was the existing solution that we came out with maybe 5 years ago.
It's about 7 years ago now.
Yeah, back in version 20, I believe. So what this guy does is if you do have an existing Slick system, you can pop this in instead of the controller. So you replace the controller that's there, plug this guy in. It's a dual Ethernet, so the device level ring. You tie that in and you add it into either a compact logics or a control logics that exists as part of your system. And then it's just nothing more than remote IO. The big thing there is any communication cards, we'd ask you to get them out of the Slick and move them into the compact or the control logic side. So if you needed to do device net, control net, essentially everything on this end is going to be all control Ethernet IO. On the newer compact design, so that 5380, a lot of the older systems like the L32Es and even the Slicks, you required some type of serial communication. So what they came out with as of last year is there's a 5069 serial adapter that does the communication in so that you can do serial. So RS-232, RS-485, you can do Modbus RTU communication off of this, and it just plugs into one of the cards on that 5380 compact logics design. In the next, by November timeframe, there's going to be a firmware update that updates DF1, DH485 communication. So this will get us a little bit more. It's going to be the exact same hardware. It's just going to be a firmware update to the existing system that we have now. So you'll start seeing some of the slides that we have talks about converting the older compacts to the newer. A consideration might be just adding this card to make sure that you have all the pieces that you need. It does Modbus RTU. I believe the answer is yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, this is no ProSoft card. This is actually a Rockwell card.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it addressed an issue we had when they originally brought out the 5069 because we knew this would be a potential headache, so it was fast tracked.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're looking at Modbus RTU, we have the serial adapter. If you're looking for Modbus TCP/IP, we have the Modbus code that you can run as socket programming inside of the Ethernet IP adapter, but it is fairly limited. So you can run it as an AOI inside of your controller, or you can get ProSoft or another third-party communication card. And that could be either in chassis or DIN rail mount. I've told multiple times I prefer the DIN rail mount stuff, but it depends on what your needs are.
The AOI is limited to like 800 registers, so don't think it's going to have the same performance as the ProSoft card because it doesn't.
So the wiring solution that you guys will see, very similar to what you saw earlier. Essentially, it's just a conversion chassis. So how many of you guys have dealt with the PLC 5 migration kit, or at least seen the videos? How many of you guys still have slicks out there? How many of you guys still have PLC 5s? We're trying. Oh, I'd be interested in that. Anybody? So the idea here is you're going to be moving from the Slick family of products. So right now you can still buy the Ethernet-based Slicks. Essentially, almost everything else is gone. Most of the I/O cards are still available, and the system is still active mature. But for all intents and purposes, we don't want you to use Slick as a new design. So if you have something that's existing or replacing, but if we're looking at migration, like I said earlier, you can put that card in, the A&T ARC card, just make it remote I/O, but you still run the risk of the fact that that card is still there, the components, everything else. So what this does is it just takes it to the RTB. So you're essentially swapping out just the RTB connection. You leave the field wiring as was, and you tie it into the newer system. But our design in this case would be only for the 5380 or the 5069 family. So if you are looking for the 1769, that's when we throw you back. The other change is when you're looking at the 5069 Compact Logix family, the wiring is slightly different than what you would see on the Slick side of it. So there are some cards that are going to be a direct connection, and then there's some that'll be kind of indirect, and you will have a wiring lead that you'll have to deal with. So we'll have everything kind of tied in. One of the tools that you'll see is if you guys are all using IAB, the Integrated Architect Builder, there's going to be a wizard directly for this type of conversion. So you put in the Slick BOM, and it's going to give you the conversion chassis and all of the cards and all of the cables that you would need for the Compact Logix side of it. So similar to what you saw earlier, main idea is you're going to remove all of the existing hardware that's in the back. All you care about is the little removable terminal block. And we will not have a solution for the non-removable one, so we'll have to address that somehow. But basically, you're going to remove the terminal block, remove the actual existing system. Just like the PLC 5 side of it, we give you the kind of the backing, uses the same bolt hole pattern. You size it depending on the size of the rack for the Slick side of it. You tie in your wiring side of it, and then we provide you the kind of housing that you put in there. So this is tied in directly to the I/O card that you were using. So once you do that, you build up your entire system. You connect all of the existing field wiring that was already there. You don't have to touch any of the wiring. Once you do that, you'll see same idea. So you got the little hinge design that you were talking about earlier. That ties in. You now put either the controller or just the remote I/O adapter. So in the Compact Logix 5380 or the 5069, you can either choose to be a one-for-one processor there, or you can just make it remote I/O and put an adapter there with all of the I/O that's there. At that point, you can either own it by another compact somewhere in the system, or even a Control Logix that might be in the system. So the tie-in is pretty easy there. It's a one-for-one for all of the I/O. One of the big things that you'll have to see is panel space. So if you guys remember on the PLC 5 conversion chassis, it added about 2 to 3 inches on the actual design because of the way that the cards would fall out. You're at about 8 inches total from the back to the front, especially because of the fact that if you've seen the Compact Logix, the newer one, that adds about 2 inches off the front of a standard I/O. So just plan out. The good thing is here, all of the wiring kind of falls to the side on the bottom. It doesn't go out to the front. So I kind of mentioned it at the beginning of it. This is going to be out starting in November. So right now we're looking at the end of the year for this design. It will be talked about at Automation Fair. They had a mock-up the last Automation Fair when it was back in Philly. So this year, this will kind of be a little bit more prevalent so that you can see it. But starting November, December timeframe, you'll start seeing all of the tools, the documentation, and everything available for it in IAB, Proposal Works, and everywhere else. So what you'll see is there's going to be a selection guide. So You will have documentation. As I always tell you guys, we will bury you in documentation. So you'll have documentation, not only the tools, but you'll also see the selection guides that'll tell you exactly what cards and what wiring harnesses go with what. The videos will be there. So similar idea. We provided some videos when we did the PLC 5 conversion that kind of showed you how long it would take you if you did it manually versus how you do it with the newer system. The PLC 5 conversion chassis was about a 6-minute install. Realistically, this is going to match up pretty similar to that. The whole point, because of the fact that you don't touch the field wiring, all of that is done pretty quickly for you. So, and then you can either choose to keep the existing old hardware just in case you ever have to go back, or you can kind of sell it back to us and do a step forward program, something like that. You will see Proposal Works IAB, the utility tool here. Once you build it in IAB, it will give you a graphical representation of everything that you do. And then it will also provide you the entire bill of material. So if you want to get a quote directly from that, you just send in the file. Any questions on that side? So a couple updates just for you guys to see on everything else. So PLC 5s are gone. You guys are aware of that. The ControlLogix L6, those are end of life. L7s are still good to go. FlexIO is still good to go. The CompactLogix, the newer ones, the L1, L2, L3, those are all good to go, but we do have a couple different pieces that we'll talk about today. On the MicroLogix side, do any of you actually have MicroLogix out there or looking at them? That makes it easy. So just as an FYI, we had already announced the 1500 and the 1100 as end of life. We currently now have a targeted discontinuation date for the 1100 and the 1200. Essentially what that means is the 1400 is the only one that's going to be sticking around. So we're doing a series change on the 1400. If anybody does buy that or look at it, series change is just kind of done in the background. You won't see any major changes on that. But anything moving forward, we have two separate paths. We're either going to push you towards the micro series. So as you guys are aware, that kind of goes from the 810 all the way up to the 870. You can do upwards of about 200 points of I/O now. So those are analog, digital, kind of a mix. You can also do Modbus, TCP/IP, and RTU on that. So that connection, the 820, the 830, and basically, 820, 850, and 870 are all Ethernet based. The 830 and the 810 are not. Those are all serial. The other option, and realistically, the option that I usually will push people towards is moving over to ControlLogix or CompactLogix. Main thing here is the micros, if you guys have ever seen them, are not meant to really communicate out to anything else. They have their own little dedicated HMI system, and you just use them either as RTUs or just standalone systems, whereas the CompactLogix will use those throughout the entire plant or facility. This is just an FYI. We have utilities that take all of the programs from one system to another. So as we start talking through it, we're going to have migration utilities that'll take you from the SLIC, so the old RSLogix 500, to a Studio 5000 environment. MicroLogix will take you either to CCW, which is that Connected Components Workbench, the free software for the Micro series, or there's a conversion that'll also take you to Studio 5000. So you can go either or. All of that is built in both in IAB and also directly into Studio 5000. So they're standalone utilities, or if you already have the full version of Studio 5000, it's all there. And then the other nice thing, if you do run across like the MicroLogix or the Micro, you can now copy and paste in between all the different software packages. So that provides you some utility there. So this kind of goes through. So we're trying to slowly match Connected Components Workbench to what the look and feel is to Studio 5000. So if you run across it, just let us know. Bless you.
And back on that also, because we really do need to make a concerted effort to get people off the MicroLogix controller. When you do run into opportunities, if you're not familiar with the Micro 800, talk to one of us. We'll gladly give you a controller to play with. We want you to become familiar. We know the software is a little bit different
Play
than
with it.
our
You need to
Logix
give it back.
500, but we will definitely work with you because we want to make sure we retain that business.
This is a little bit of the differences that you'll see. Some of them are going to be more of the profile, kind of just quick look and feel just to see where our migration paths are. You can always ask us, but in most cases, we'll have everything kind of set up on our website so that you can see what the direct path is from one direction to another. As you guys saw earlier in the presentation with Emphatic, we have solutions to be able to go from pretty much any IO platform to anything that you're looking at. So if you need anything custom, we'll have a solution, whether it's through Encompass Partners or through Rockwell. But in most cases, we'll provide you kind of our default method. So as you guys have seen, if we're looking at a SLIC, traditionally that's a move to a compact Logix. If you're talking about PLC 5s, that was traditionally to a control Logix. I've had customers kind of mix and match all of that. So it will work. You can always go to remote IO, go to a bigger system. In most cases, you can even move things to our DCS and the Plant PX system. It just depends on what you guys are looking at. Anybody have the older compact Logix? L32Es, L35Es, L4s? Okay, so those are another group that we do have now in an end of life date. So the easiest way to see this is for most of the newer controllers, there was a little orange USB port on the front of it. If you have the orange USB port on the front of it, you are perfectly fine. Those are active or active mature products, no end of life date set for any of those. If you see a serial port on the front of it, more than likely it's either already end of life or it has a date associated to it. So one of the things that we'll see is, so the L32E, L35E, the max version of Studio 5000 that you can go on this was version 20. So that's kind of where it stopped. Then we also have the older brick style L4s. I think that was the 43 and the 45. Same thing, these were maxed out at version 19, if I remember correctly. So if you have those still in play, we have a couple different options. We can either move directly to a 5380 type family, so that's the newer and that's the latest and greatest version of the high performance compact Logix. The other potential option that you can see is just replacing the L32Es or the L35Es with a drop-in replacement of the L3, basically
33, 30.
Yeah, either the L30ER or the L33ER. At that point, you don't have to change any of the IO. You can simply just replace that, and you have the option of moving to version 20 or above. So if you're looking at that, it really depends on what does the panel look like? Do you have updated drawings? Do you want to replace everything to something newer? Do you need any new feature sets? If it really is just you want to be able to stay kind of current, have something that you can upgrade, but you want to do it as quickly as possible, just replace the processor. If you have the L4s, those are going to be a little bit harder because of the fact that the IO is slightly different. So as you start seeing it, when we do migration, just take a look at it and see where we're at. Our traditional method is going to be the 5380. And I think I've told you guys in most cases, if you present me with a bill of material, I'll first provide you something in the 5380 for the compact Logix. I'll also provide you something in what we call the 5370. That's the older style, just because of the fact that traditionally speaking now, the 5380 doesn't take as much panel space. Smaller IO cards tied in. So if you have anything in the SLIC or you see any of those groups, you're going to see there. The L32E, the L35E, right now we're set for the end of next year. So this isn't a rush to the end of the finish. We're trying to provide about 18 months to 2 years of time, just so you guys are aware of it. Other piece, panel views. Our current option that we usually push for you guys is the Panel View Plus 7. So that'd be the standard of the performance side of it. We do still supply the Panel View Plus 6 to a lot of you. I can see the number. If any of you are running the Panel View Plus 6, we do now have a discontinued date. So we're doing a run on this. We have two separate families. They were done at different times, so they're going to be phased out 1 year and then the other. So 2020, 2021. Essentially, what we're looking at here is you have the option of potentially just moving to the PanelView Plus 7. That is a drop-in replacement for almost every situation, with the exception of a few things. Mainly, if it's Ethernet based, it's a quick drop-in. If you were running control net or device net, we'll have to put some type of gateway in between. So as we start looking at it, if you have the 7-inch all the way up to the 15-inch, we got until 2020. The applications will move directly from a Factory Talk View ME system to a newer version of Factory Talk View ME and just automatically tie in. So, no, just to close his laptop.
What?
Yeah. So do you guys have any big questions on a PanelView Plus 6? Yeah. Is it a complete, give me a little bit more info on it.
Why is the 6 there or being asked for? Do you know? Oh, okay.
You already have an existing application that runs on the
Yeah.
6?
Is serial part of the protocols? There's probably no reason why, except with one exception is the Highbright module. Our lone Highbright is a plus 6 for right now. Where we take people who need a Highbright module now is to take an ME or an SE runtime and put them on a Highbright PC. Yeah.
Okay.
Then
So-
you'd probably go to the 7. And,
Yeah, so-
and it'll be more cost effective also.
Yeah, so right now, one of the things that if anybody has been buying the 6 and they're moving to the 7, they're probably going to see a price difference. The 7s are currently actually cheaper than they are the 6. You guys have seen this all throughout. Anytime that we move something to active mature, end of life date, you're going to see it cost creep on those just because of their older units. So the PanelView Plus 7 is still kind of the current one, especially what we promote when it comes to the process system. So we've talked about the process library objects, a lot of different faceplates and the different things that we provide as Rockwell. It makes things easy, and there's a transition between the 6 and the 7 where you can take the exact same application and move it over. The other thing that we're now looking at is, so the 7 is kind of going to be your go-to. There's two things that you have to be aware of. There's a standard, and then there's a performance. Your default should be the performance. So at all times moving from a 6 family to the 7 family, the default should be the performance. We have the option of doing the standard. The standard allows for one controller connection, whether that's Rockwell or whether it's third party, and it's limited on the number of screens. So it's 50 displays and 50 pop-ups, so 50 little faceplates. If the system can support that, you can move it down to the PanelView Plus 7 standard. You get a price break on that. It is a lower price point, but you're not able to increase the number of controllers. So that's why I want you to make sure to kind of look at the performance as your default. It also does now go up to a 19-inch screen. The PanelView Plus 6 versions only went up to a 15-inch screen. The other consideration that we're now going to be pushing on you guys is the newer PanelView that's been out. So for the longest time, we were basically telling you, don't touch it, don't look at it. It's not for our industry. It's not for our environment. The PanelView Plus, or the PanelView 5000 series, that 5510, is now in a position where it might be something that you guys want to look at when we start talking about migrations. The big issues, and I'll be very blunt on this side of it, there is no migration path from the 6 and the 7 application-wise to the 5510. It is a completely new design. So if you do have legacy installs and you're using that same application, stay with the 7. But if you're doing a brand new install and you have essentially no legacy applications that you have to deal with, you can build from scratch, you can use the tools that we provide, and you're using the newer compact logics or control logics. You're not doing slicks, you're not doing PLC 5s, and it's all Rockwell, or at least the majority of it is Rockwell. then the 5510 is something that would be a definite kind of teaser that we want to look at. It is built into IAB, it is built into proposal work, so you can see everything that's in there. We have demos available for it. And the big thing is it's using Studio 5000 as the development environment. So there is no additional software package. Basically, it's Studio 5000 View Designer. Any package that you install already has that as a potential install. Most people just don't install it. But it's the same license as Studio 5000.
Can we go back? Just one
Okay.
other caveat on it is there are no third-party drivers for it, no
Right.
Kepware for it, Ethernet IP only. So if you're bringing in Modbus or something, you're going to have to do it through the controller first.
So if you're already using a ProSoft gateway or something similar to it, once it hits the Rockwell controller, it's a Rockwell point. So this will still be able to see it. It's just only going to be getting its information from the Rockwell point. The 6 and the 7 had Kepware built in. So it had about 30 different drivers where you can pull directly from a Modicon controller of anything Modbus or anything else. So once we move into this design, it has the same size family. So you're looking at, I believe it's a 6-inch all the way up to a 19-inch screen. The only thing that's missing right now is we do not have a high bright option. So if you are in high bright, we're going to keep you on 6 until we have a solution for it. This will get an extended temperature range. It currently has marine certification. And what you'll see from us is any new feature sets are all going to be coming in through the View Designer side of it. We do have the ability of being able to do a lot of the high performance graphics that we're dealing with. We have started building out a lot of the faceplates. So we have the switches, the drive, E300, all of that is built in now that you can just download and install. So as they start building it up, we can support up to 4 Rockwell controllers. And it also, when we were talking about the L8s, if you guys have remembered the newer alarming functionality that we have in the L8s, this will tie in directly to that. So it does a lot better job of that. So if you're interested, you have more information that you want, let us know. We can get you either demos or some of the cloud-based demos that we have to try it out. But essentially, if you have legacy on the PanelView Plus 6, move to the 7, or at least start looking at it. If you have the ability of doing a completely new install and you want to attempt to see what we can do on the newer designs, let's start talking about the 5510s. Any questions? Anything I missed that you guys have questions on regarding either hardware or software from us? So that was essentially all. Okay. So, like I said, we're current on Compact Logics. If you got the little orange USB port, you're good to go. The L7s, the L8s are still kind of our main go-tos on Control Logics. We're not making any changes there. On the IO family, if you had Flex IO, you can continue with Flex IO. Flex 5000 is out, but it is not a replacement for it. We are going to be talking about L8 redundancy next year. Further into the year. But this is our last user group for the year. Starting in January, we're going to do a big automation update with everything that gets talked about during Automation Fair. So I will urge you, if you can make Automation Fair, plan for it. The day before is Process System User Group. So if you guys haven't seen this, this is usually when we start talking about a lot of the process, a lot of the Plant PX, DCS side of it. We will have tech sessions. We will have customer sessions there. This is a paid event. So unlike Automation Fair, there's I think it's about $600 registration fee. Once you get there, you basically set it up and you will have all the different classes. There will also be a social event tied into the registration side of it. It's in the exact same location, so you don't have to have different hotels or anything like that. So this will be the Monday, Tuesday of that week. And then Wednesday, Thursday will be the official Automation Fair side of it. This is a free event. You basically just have to pay to get over there. It will be in Chicago this year. It's at the McCormick Place. Not only is it basically our largest trade show of the year, so it's a kind of everything new, everything that's on the roadmap when it comes to Rockwell and all the different solutions that we have, but it's also our Encompass partners. So we have about 130 to 140 different vendors that are there showing off everything that they do that ties in with Rockwell. From upper end technologies like IoT designs, virtual reality, all of the software packages down to a lot of the gateways, components. So, and there's also free training that happens at these things. So every hour, every 2 hours, there are different sessions, both from forums to hands-on kind of show and tell. So if you guys are interested, I don't know if you do want to touch on the, we got one more day. Did you want to touch on anything in the? Okay, cool. So do you guys have any questions? Either on this or anything that we talked about? I appreciate it, guys.